what I was feeling in couplets so revealing. I'm blushing as I'm reading, knowing that the first time I didn't have the words till they were said by a poet with my thoughts in her head. If I could talk in poetic phrase, I'd make you mine forever and a day. Let you peek into my soul. Yes, that would be the goal. If I could talk like it was said by the poet with my thoughts in her head. Unrequited, you couldn't fight it. My acrobatic alliteration would cause you consternation. You'd fall in love with me today if I could talk like it was said by the poet with my thoughts in her head. If I were a poet, it would only take a blanket in the sunshine, and you by my side, maybe a cold bottle of white wine and a cool breeze rolling off the bay. 'Cause if I were a poet, I'd know what to say. How did she know what I was feeling in couplets so revealing? I'm blushing as I'm reading, knowing for the first time that I didn't have the words till they were said by a poet with my thoughts in her head. No, I didn't have the words till they were said by a poet with my thoughts in her head.
Beautiful, Josie, beautiful.
Thank
Goodness,
you.
we're so happy to have you back with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, especially during Poetry Month. And Josie wrote that song just for us for Poetry Month, and we appreciate it a lot. And we're so happy to have Josie back with us. We met her virtually, but she is a local musician here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Josie Bello. She is a singer-songwriter from Huntington, New York. Her songs tell stories that are relatable and explore issues that are both timely and timeless. Her newest release, Have Purpose, Live Long, in 2020, and her debut album, Can't Go Home, in 2018, have both had extensive US and international radio play, with the albums and individual tracks appearing on an impressive number of radio charts. Josie performs solo and with her band, the Kit House Band. Her music is available everywhere, including Spotify, Bandcamp, iTunes, and Amazon. And we'll be sharing links to Josie's music and for links for everyone who will be performing with us here tonight. So thank you, Josie, and we'll be hearing more from her later in the program as well. My name is Caitlyn Shea, and I'm the Events and Media Director for Walt Whitman Birthplace. And if you're not familiar with us yet, we are a museum that's located in Huntington, New York, which is on Long Island. And we would love it if you could visit us in person for tours of the house that Walt Whitman was born in 201 years ago. It'll actually be 202 years next month, so very soon. And we are so excited to be having these virtual events now. That's a new update since 2020. So we can come into people's living rooms and bring them poetry and scholarly events as well. And I also want to mention we have so many events for Poetry Month that I'm not going to go through every single one. But when I post these links, you'll be able to check out all of the upcoming events. We have a really interesting one next week about Abraham Lincoln, with David S. Reynolds, who wrote Abe, Abraham Lincoln in His Times. So it's about Abraham Lincoln's lifetime and legacy. And we'll also have Barbara Baer with us, and she's a historian with the Library of Congress. And she'll be showing us artifacts from when Whitman wrote When Lilacs in the Dooryard Bloomed, and a number of other poems and lectures that he presented about Lincoln. He was a big fan. So definitely join us for that program and check out all the other ones. A lot of poetry programs this month. All right, and I always want to start every program by saying thank you so much to everyone who donates. Even something small like $5 that you might spend on a cup of Starbucks coffee for us means multitudes when you add it all up to all of the new people that we're meeting. And we really, really appreciate it. We've been growing so much just by meeting new people in different countries. This is our most international with Afric event so far. So we're very excited for that. So thank you again. And thank you for your presence, for being here as well. Let's see. So the links will be in the chat very soon. And I also want to mention we will have a Q&A at the end of the program. So make sure that you are thinking about your questions so we can just jump right into that at the end of the program. So I'm going to turn things over to George Wallace. George Wallace is our writer-in-residence. He's been with us for 11 years, bringing us the best poets from both near and far. And he's an excellent poet as well. When you see those links, you'll see one for our YouTube channel, and you can actually watch a phenomenal poetry reading that George did with us a few months ago on Zoom.
It's just the way
Right.
it is.
So George, I'm handing it right over to you now.
That was efficiently done. Good job, Kate.
Thanks, George.
Caitlyn's been an enormous boost to everything we do here at the Walt Whitman Birthplace, and I want to thank her personally. Of course, Cynthia Shore, the director of the birthplace as well. But Caitlyn's the one with the buttons, and she's making it all happen. And really, she's got it knocked. So I'm impressed with what she said. So I want to just double down on that that Lincoln and Whitman presentation, only to say that David S. Reynolds, a noted historian, he's the guy that, when they call somebody up, on any of the TV stations, the news stations, to talk about what a president's doing, they go to him because he's done biographies of many of the presidents. Very personable, very well-spoken guy. Plus, he has done a cultural biography of Walt Whitman, which is enormously entertaining to read. You see the relationship between Walt Whitman and everything from jug band music to the curveball in baseball. He's really, it's a tremendous production. He also wrote a biography, a very well-respected biography of Jack Kerouac as well. So, there's a man to listen to anytime you get a chance. So, I plan on tuning into that one. It's a good one. But in the meantime, here we are with Walt Whitman's Walking with Walt series, and this is a great opportunity for us to, because we're doing this online, to have people from international climes come to visit with us and be part of the show without having to cross too many time zones to get here. And it's a super opportunity. As you know, we pair noted local poet with a noted national or international poet. We focused on international poets almost exclusively this year because of the Zoom opportunity. I'll be telling you more about the international guests who we have here today. But first, I'll introduce Richard Bronson, who, and I'm looking through the crowd, and we've got a lot of great people who we all know from Long Island here today. So you'll probably know Richard Bronson in his capacity as a poet. He's performed all over the places that we've all performed all over on Long Island regionally for years, and been a prominent member, as a participant, as a poet. But his influence as an organizer and as a supporter of poets in various types of venues has been really exceptional. First of all, for example, he's a member of the board of the Walt Whitman Birthplace itself, so, and has been for a number of years. So his work there has been instrumental. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that he's for many years been part of the Long Island Poetry Collective. Must be like 50 years old, the Poetry Collective at this point, maybe more than that. I think it started in 1960. And Richard, I don't think you were there from the beginning, but for at least 4 decades, as long as I've been involved in poetry on Long Island, he's been running that, or been part of running the workshop at the Huntington Library up on the 2nd floor on those Thursdays. And, you know, he's part of the reason why we still have Xanadu being published by the Long Island Poetry Collective annually, semi-annually. You know, because of his persistence in keeping Long Island Poetry Collective strong and active. I don't know what that noise is, but it's over. So we all know from that. But him, you know, he is we don't get an opportunity really to look at his work in this kind of length, and so we're going to have that opportunity today. I know that Jack Houlihan, another physician poet, who's also a member of the Walt Whitman Birthplace, wrote a very nice blurb on the back of one of his more recent books. You know, making a hit on doctors, and I've been saying today's doctors often appear detached and cold, cerebral rather than caring, but not Richard Bronson. He's a fine physician poet whose compassionate heart energizes the poems. In the book, it was called Search for Oz, which I hope we'll hear from today. Bronson combines the precise craftsmanship that one would expect of a surgeon, yes indeed, with the passion of a man who remains open to his own feelings and those of others. That's Jack Houlihan's words. And he's got it absolutely right, you know, because this is an exceptional collection. His work has always impressed me. Whenever I read or hear Richard's work, I discover new things about the messages that are out there everywhere in the contemporary world. Quotidian and at once full of wonder. What he does is he invites us to unmask with him in this world we all pass through what's timeless, terrifying, and impassioned and true about our passage through life. So I'll say no more. Just please welcome, if you would, Richard Bronson.
Well, thank you, George, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to read in the Walking with Whitman series, which I've always admired. So what I'm going to be doing is to divide this reading into 3 segments. The first is going to be based upon a series of poems I wrote a few years ago called The Months, where I matched a poem with each month of the year. I won't be reading all the months. And then the second is going to be based upon some memories of my parents and growing up with a father who was a family medicine doc at the time when GPs made house calls, and I often accompanied him on Sunday mornings. And the third section is about my own journey in medicine. So I'm going to start off with The Months. And these poems are, the beginning poems are some more lyrical in style, and the later ones are more narrative. January. I have come to know the melancholy of Monday morning roads, leading toward the incarceration of offices, the anvil of their hours. And I know the sadness of blue evenings as dusk passes into darkness, street lamps switching on, illuminating the long way home. I know the dark solemnity of empty houses awaiting their occupants, and the solitude of autos that carry cloistered drivers alone on night highways, each at the end of days. February. Doc Blades, he's called, wears his speed skates barefoot. He's an orthopedic surgeon, so I've heard, but wouldn't know. And they say, beware, his blades will cut you if you're slow. Ask him why he skates. He'll tell you about the long glide, strong stride, steel on ice, prowl of the pack, full moon howl, flying through the night, mantra of the blade, heat of the meat, rhythm of the motion. And I thought I heard him say as he raced away, High on ice, stars sing to me. March, March, passage. He rode on a river of steel through a cave of night. Lights of little towns winked welcome were gone, and the train sang its sorrows, Duantiwo, Duantiwo. The land fell away to a sea of dreams, while sleepers snored their hours. His face, a moon in the glass, tread a carpet of stars. Then a squall gathered in his eyes, a tempest upon his cheeks. He said goodbye to the life he led, to those left behind. Red dawn came, and he rose from the depths of his doubts as the train sang its morning prayer, Duantiwo, Duantiwo, Duantiwo. April. The language of birds, whistling, warbling everywhere. You think they sing their songs of love, but I've learned the language of birds. Though they are wise and sing, their time will come. Owls watching, waiting on the night. Hawks soar in silent judgment, their keen eyes looking down upon us. And crows wear black, congregate in the synagogue of trees, pray to the one God for the coming of the Messiah. They too know the time will come when pigeons rummage empty city streets, air filled with wild flutter of starlings in giddy celebration, for the sky is theirs again. May, the gift. It was a day that gods grant only occasionally. We met at Earth's edge, you silent, waiting in tidal rocking of water through reeds. Sky, a blue that could not be believed, the day just waking to the sun's call to prayer. And we welcomed each other in recognition of our common need to praise land, sea, air, and thank that which had brought all this into being. In our mutual understanding, I gave you my greeting, and you, a white feather floating freely on the tide. I met a swan that day. July. Dawn ferry at Orcas Island. Orcas Island is one of the San Juan Islands in Puget Sound, north of Seattle. Dawn ferry at Orcas Island for Susan. You threw a jacket over your nightgown. I struggled in darkness into jeans, and we rushed onto the Widow's Walk to watch the ferry approach. Orion dominated the dawn sky, his belt a trio of stars. Two tiers of light, silent on night water, floated towards the pier. Across the channel, firefly headlights flickered within the dark forest, racing toward the ferry slip. You stood by me, watching the gathering day extinguish the stars in tones of rose, and red Madrona burst into flame. A voice announced through a loudspeaker, "Cars leaving for Lopez Island board now." And gulls appeared, sounding the call to prayer from their high places. Heeding their command, we returned to bed, the temple of our love, tasted the power of Eros in celebration of the day. August. Driving home on a late August evening. Houses catch fire in falling light as the day dies. Vacant windows, glowing embers. Night will soon extinguish the sun. Stars multiply without end, seeding the sky, and a waning moon whispers, "Gone, gone." Dark trees, full of themselves in high summer, rim the road, cry, "Remember us as we are now." I sense the long days pass, slow journey of earth round the sun toward winter's dark solstice. It has always been so. Born in the house of the fish under a new moon, I have felt the heavy pull, the highs and lows, sought solace of sleep at its ebb, obscurity of dream, and at its fullness howled abuses toward an imperfect world. October, in the season of spiders. I have walked through webs, complex designs of the weavers who sleep the day away, resting from their nocturnal vigilance. It is that time when cicadas still sing, and a gibbous moon accompanies one through the night. I do not begrudge them their night work, yet I have taken the vacuum to their resting places for fear of entanglement, their little ones ready to burst from the nest, float on the wind toward distant places, deny their future. I have often wondered what special silk spiders would make and how a lonely worm was chosen by the Chinese for their trade. If I could wear a spider silk cape, the spectral blaze of stars glistening in its folds, I'd fly on arachnid wings, cousin to the bat, companion to the moon, a night traveler in the season of spiders. November, Thanksgiving for Susan. I awaken in soft light to thee and me, bodies comforting each other. My breath blows gently onto your shoulder, lips touching soft skin. If I were to open my eyes onto the day, this fragile moment would pass, and I have grown aware in the space between sleep and waking of the thought. Our breaths, the slow movement of air passing in and out, minute by minute, mingle in this bedroom over the years as our lives have, and I must give thanks. We move on to the second portion of the reading, growing up with my parents and my dad, a family doctor. She won't be back. They sat at the kitchen table, last patient scene, blackout shades drawn, end of the day, silence, and the distant whistle of an air raid warden in his call. Lights out, New York, 1942, a world at war. 5 walk-ins, not much of a practice, but better than the day before. My father completed medical training in 41. His in-laws paid for the furniture, the equipment. They hoped to pay the rent. Front rooms of the apartment, his medical office, the back, their kitchen, bedroom, the lounge at night, the waiting room by day. My mother, the receptionist, they had no money for a nurse. That woman who came in this morning left empty-handed without a prescription. My mother shook her head. She won't be back, expecting something, leaving with nothing. She's stressed, not ill, and I'm no Barnum. You want me to prescribe a vitamin pill? You know P.T. Barnum sitting there, sporting those rimless glasses you don't need, only wear to look more professional? They sat looking at each other across the table, listening to voices in the street. Again, she shook her head. How are we going to pay the rent at $2 a visit, $3 a house call? He took off his glasses, placed them on the table, rubbed his forehead. Father's Day. Sudden growling of a truck broke the stillness of Sunday morning, sent a flotilla of pigeons skyward over rooftops, air filled with their cooing. These were neighborhoods smelling of grapes, trestled above front doors, where kids played stickball in the streets. We waited in the double-parked caddy, my mother in the front seat, silently reading the paper, my brother and I playing old maid, while father walked up stone steps, A duplex houses guarded by concrete lines, black bag in hand. 7 days a week he worked, disregarding the biblical injunction, but Sunday afternoons he was ours, leading us past dioramas of the African veldt, through museum halls of dinosaurs, or trips to the Bronx Zoo, tigers burning their captivity, the Penguin House, and wild pony rides. Imperfect knowledge. My toes wriggled skeletal within new shoes, big toe, little ones, as x-rays passed through me, no worry of Roentgens or rads. I stepped off the pedestal, laughed, and the shoe salesman smiled, said, "Look again if you like." We both watched the goodness of the fit. My father, a general all-around doc, made use of x-rays too. How many chest x-rays did he perform, set fractures under fluoroscopy, not realizing danger of overexposure, no lead to shield his body. In the end, did it matter? Heart disease caught up with him, his 100 patient days, not cancer. After the first coronary, his face, a fractured moon, gray, within the mist of a plastic oxygen tent. I thought he would break apart, never return to us. Before the second lethal blow, I saw him in the kitchen, taking red pills from the fridge. Estrogen, he said, they tell me it's good for my heart. I'd grow breasts if I had to. Yes, I hoped then, but now no, it wasn't so. There was a theory that women didn't get heart disease until after menopause, and perhaps estrogen is protective. Turned out it was just the opposite. Estrogen promoted heart disease. To his violin for William Bronson, MD. I found you abandoned in the attic of my boyhood home, your broken bridge, rusting strings, a testimony to disregard. When had you last sung? In what year did he last hold you in his loving hands? Can you sing me a song of my lost father, of the times you had together, the long dead maestro, you his prima donna? When did he last place you in your case where you have waited in aging velvet until gently lifted from that grave resting place and I stroked your strings? If I were to raise your frayed bow, touch so lightly those strings, would you whisper why he lost interest, left you longing in your case? What was his new love that led to this estrangement? What ruled him that nothing else mattered, his music, his family? Sing me a song of my lost father. Tell me of the times you had together. Tell me of his passion. Whisper his secrets that I may understand. I'm switching gears to my mom now. Chinese with mother. Last night, after the meal at Empire Sichuan, we cracked open fortune cookies. Yours said, idleness is the holiday of fools. I drew a black slip for mine. What could it mean? Had I underpaid my bill? Ever complained the lobster sauce was watery, scallops overcooked, hot and sour soup bland? Cracked open, the cookie lay in the dish like a carapace of some broken insect, the leftover husk out of which was hatched my death. Was this a message sent in error meant for a member of the Kuomintang? Or like the dead fish Sonny Corleone received? I thought, beware the Ides of March, but this was August, and what were Ides anyway? Then it seemed someone yelled, it is for you, and I knew there was no way out. The time had come to eat the cookie. I put that in to sort of lighten up the heaviness of the mood. My mother's incidentaloma. An incidentaloma is an unexpected finding. A doctor's looking for something and suddenly finds something else. My mother is incidentaloma. I scrawled a silly face on a latex glove blown up to distract you, smiled as we waited in a cramped exam room. You brought me here, your eyes accused, watching the heavy minutes tick by. Your doctor retired. A new one ordered this test and that, an ultrasound to confirm his suspicion of gallstones, and there in the right kidney, a spot. No way to know if it's cancer, better to remove it, he'd said. But how to live with that on your mind? I suggested a second opinion. The urologist, tall, distant, white-coated as I other times, told us your choice is the risks. We sat there in silence, thinking what could not be said. I'll never escape. What should I do? You frowned at me. Say something. You're a doctor. I thought of my father, who had prided himself in his medical judgment, told his patients what to do. He'd have advised you, but I was not him. Mom, a difficult choice. I can't decide for you. All I could muster, seeking my own escape. Neither of us spoke on the drive to your place. I turned the radio on, turned the radio off, as a thought echoed through my mind. Could I advise surgery you might not survive? Week after week I phoned. You said, I've scheduled the pre-op test, always postponed. You had made a decision to proceed with surgery at some distant date. Perfect. She snapped each bean to judge its freshness, pressed each peach, each tomato squeezed. I looked up at the counters, walked the aisles of the A&P behind her cart. We smelled the cantaloupes, shook the honeydews, thumped the watermelons, felt firmness of cucumbers. She sniffed coffee beans before they were ground, knew the odor of fresh fish, color of spoiled meat. She has lived her life this way, judging for herself the quality of things, what others take for granted. You sense it in her elocution, her dress, her hair, her high-heeled shoes, the refusal to wear sneakers. Now she is no longer perfect, needs an aide to help her dress, her gait precarious, that her mind is clear. She still wears heels, it is her way, though death lurks with every fold. I learned a lot from my mother. Homecoming. Homecoming. A year since her passing, so hard to return, and everything untouched, unchanged. Photos of great-grandchildren on the Kanabe Bay baby grand, the love seat with vines entwined, silk-covered ottoman in tatters, silent grandfather clock run out of time. Her closets crowded with clothes, bags of decades-old bank statements neatly arranged by year in rubber-banded envelopes, a box of family snapshots, my father holding me as a toddler on his shoulder. In her bedroom, his chest of drawers, never emptied from the time she sold the house, moved to this apartment 30 years ago. The scent of his cologne still lingered on silk pajamas, socks, underwear, stale cigars, and clip-on paisley bow ties. Now I'm going to move on to the last segment, medical school, internship and beyond, so my journey in medicine. Su Medico. First came chills each afternoon, then shakes and sweats. You stayed in bed till breathless came to Bellevue. I, only a med student, met you near midnight, took your history, examined you, stayed till dawn, and every day that week, you had neglected yourself, ignored an infection. Now, a kidney needs to be removed. That's the way of diabetes, a disease you did not know you had. Paged overhead toward B5. The clerkship completed in just 5 days before. My intern met me with a frown. Welcome back, short coat. She needs a nephrectomy, won't consent without seeing her doctor. I was Sumedico, your doctor. What had I done to earn your trust? I wasn't completely sure. Still, I walked to your bedside in wonder, took your hand, said, I'm here. San Antonio summer at Brooks Air Force Base. 1, a summer job where men tested their metal in decompression chambers, in centrifuges, in sleds fired on railroad tracks. They housed me, a med student wanting some role in the race to the moon, with docs from the heartland, flight surgeons entering active duty. I walked the asphalt paths, kicked lizards that lazed in the afternoon heat, temperature falling through 90 as the day wore on, sun setting in a big sky. 2, my job. I who'd wished to work with astronauts assigned instead to weigh SAC bomber crew immersed in water, measure their lean body mass, wondered what difference a paunch on a pilot would make, sitting in a B-52, silent, eyes hidden behind red goggles. They swaggered in their muscled nakedness into my lab, dark adapted to their cockpits, ready day or night, airborne at the president's command, fly over the pole, drop hydrogen bombs, mutual assured destruction, MAD it was called. A Bellevue story. Marvin, you came to us out of the Bowery, limbs, skull, ribs fractured, unconscious in shock, more dead than alive. Hit and run, they said you were bumming a drink. We drilled burr holes in your fractured skull, drained your bloody subdurals. You awakened. Your rib cage shattered. We tubed and trached you. You breathed for us. Alive but not well, your saga began. You survived the sepsis of your Foley catheter and the DTs. Strapped down, you raged. We knew you were healing when old habits returned. How about a smoke, Doc? I lit up a cigarette, puffed through your trach. It was your only pleasure. I lost track of you in rehab. It was your 6th month at Bellevue. Walking didn't come easy, your fractured legs, but you survived it all and left after a year. I saw you last in admitting that following spring. Back in town from Camp LaGuardia, you were on the streets once more. They carried you in on a stretcher I called the social workers, who were happy to see you again, in need of cleaning, but still surviving. We disinfected you, replaced your broken prosthesis in a little of your broken life. I shall be your Vasari. So Giorgio Vasari was a Renaissance painter known for his collection of biographies, the lives of most eminent sculptors and painters. I shall be your Vasari. I was in the Salmagundi Club the other day, Guillermo, for the Art League show. Staid brownstone, its somber rooms recalled our short acquaintance. My career as doctor just beginning, yours as artist coming to an unexpected end. Your brother had volunteered for Vietnam. He was furious with you not fighting for your country. Malingerer, he called you, with your recurrent bouts of pain. But that was before we found the cancer. Now, there was only time enough to wait. I thought of this the year of your illness, as we sat talking art and politics over dinner, and I watched you paint our protests, crowds in gray and black tones marching up the campus to Bryant Park. Then, once again in Bellevue, who jabbed you with needles, forced you to swallow long rubber tubes, I, who had become more than your doctor. We both knew all help was transitory. You had entered that fierce land from which there was no return. I cannot be your Orpheus, but now as your Vasari, I shall tell of your short life. pain. I lifted your limp body out of the courtyard mud where you had lain in the floating litter. Rain poured down, soaked through my hospital lights. Alcohol was the addiction to which you had lost a wife, the job of life. The incessant pain abated for a bit, yet pancreatitis is a demon thing. It dwells chronically without remorse, a reminder of one's abuses. Morphine no longer provided comfort. Now, he only wished for another illness, the slow decline that the hepaticoma might do, or rather, the rupture of varices. Death from bleeding would be swift. I didn't know the depth of your despair. Your resources had dwindled with each hospitalization. Last year, you were admitted to university, but now it was Bellevue. You had run out of funds. More than that, had joined the Barry bombs you despised. I was told you were missing. Last seen in the men's room. An abandoned IV bottle, its tube hanging freely, swung back and forth on the solitary pole. The fluid running nowhere spoke of your life. The silent men's room screamed your suicide. I looked down from the open window. I saw you there in the mud, 3 stories below. Taking sides. A junior resident on rotation, new to the place. First case of the day, I met the surgeon at the scrub sink. Now gowned and gloved, we faced each other, the anesthetized patient between us. Silence ticked by to the sound of the ventilator. Well, why don't you ask for the scalpel, he said. Thank you for the case, I blurted out, but the hernia is on your side. I admitted him last night. We spoke through masks, but I could see his eyes, which broached no error. What? I'm sure you're wrong. I read my office notes this morning. The chart's over there. He signaled the circulator. Bring it over. See, left. Scalpel, I said. The knife snapped into my gloved hand. Then, at the thought, could he be wrong? I'd trust myself. Wait, I'm sure I'm right. You gotta be sure. Wake him up, to the anesthetist. Eyes. Now everyone looking at each other, wondering, judging. I watched the man awaken, still strapped down under sterile drapes, puzzled when asked which side, then mutter, right. There was a question, now none, the surgeon said, turning to me. Took spunk, but I knew I'd hesitated, almost stayed silent, and made the wrong cut. Dr. Dawn. I was doing triage that night, a quiet night, when he walked into the ER. A muscular man in a paisley shirt and jeans, dog on a leash, a big dog. I didn't recognize the breed. Service dog? Not really. There are no dogs allowed here. You'll want this one. See, a guy comes in with abdominal pain. Give Hunter the command, diagnose. He'll bark once for acute appendicitis, twice if it's ruptured, a growl for cholecystitis, a howl for diverticulitis. Hard to believe. Not really. He handed me his card, Larry Lawrence, MD, breeder. I was a surgeon once, but that's another story. You in charge? Tonight I am. How does Hunter do it? It's in the sweat. Each illness a different smell. I took skin swabs from patients while still in practice, stored them, correlated smells with CT scans, discharge diagnoses. You've seen dogs sniffing for drugs at airports. Hunter takes things one step further. He doesn't make mistakes. Take a look at this positive predictive value. I'll leave him with you tonight. No charge. You can't go wrong. I'll be back in the morning. A guest at communion. The pastor wipes the chalice clean. As one by one they come to drink. Some place the host within their mouth and sip. Others dip into the wine, partake as one, the body and the blood. Between hymns and homily, the pastor takes a handkerchief from under his robes, blows his nose. These same hands hold a cup of wine. with an eye for illness, I wonder what might pass from one to another. This congregation shares their faith and more. Perhaps the blood of Christ destroys all germs, but to be safe, if the choice were mine, I'd rather be a wafer dipper than a goblet sipper. First, do no harm. In the heady days of his education, he devoured fruit from the tree of knowledge, binged on ideas, gorged on words of biochemists, bacteriologists, pathologists, then regurgitated them, enthralled with silence, a sense of infallibility. Everything seemed possible. Progress is mantra. Yet time passed, new paradigms replacing old. Drugs he prescribed did little good. Procedures no benefit, if not harm. In that sea of fallacies and fashions, false compass bearings could be made. He sailed a fragile bark, fearing shipwreck on the Isle of Error. Caution, now his watchword. The man with two heads. Which head would he wear today? What if he wore the wrong one, started the day as poet in his role as healer, sporting the head of empathy when he needed to stand apart? There was no solace of the scalpel, tears shed over spilled blood. Yet some days he awakened wondering, did he not wear both upon his shoulders, singing a duet, mindful of some hidden balance? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Beautiful. I love that self-portrait with the two heads, especially. All right, I could come back.
I try to merge, some humor with the heaviness too.
Get that balance. I love that.
Get a balance, yeah.
I'm gonna have everyone unmute for just a moment so that we can give a big, well-deserved round of applause. Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Richard. Awesome. All right, Josie, I'm gonna come back to you now. There we go. And you're unmuted, perfect. And everybody please remember to mute again. Thank you. All right, good.
Got nothing to say, I run out of words. I got no more nouns, no more verbs, no more adjectives. I got no more action expletives. No way to justify, no way to testify. Got nowhere to run, I run out of places, get no relief from seeing new faces. No sunny day or walk on a beach is gonna put the past within my reach. I can't go home, it ain't home no more, and it don't exist the way it did before. Not the same people, not the same places, no gain to be made from wishing and waiting as time moves steady. I hope and pray we'll all be together again someday. Got nothing to do, I run out of time. Got no way to share my last rhyme. Never wrote it down, never put it to song. No time left to right any wrongs. The universe is pushing me along. sacrifice, there's no gain to be made from wishing and waiting as time moves steady. I hope and pray we'll all be together again, dear Lord, you know. I pray we'll all be together again. Oh, I just want to be together again someday. Who says you can't go home? We're all going home when the Maker calls us home. We're gonna be restored.
So beautiful, Josie. Thank you. Really matches Richard's poems, the same tone there. Definitely beautiful. All right. And then I'm going to go back to you, George. But I just want to let you know, I think your cufflinks were doing that thing with your microphone again before. So just, yeah, sit back.
I don't think so.
That clicking.
But I'll keep my hands away from the table.
All right, you sound better already. It's good. It's just that little clicking there. But good.
Okay, good. Thank you, Josie. That was wonderful. Thanks for that. And Richard, meticulous work, very grounded, very moving material that you take us through. So thank you for your poetry.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, it's a pleasure now to take you across the cold, icy Atlantic Ocean to past midnight by 2 a.m. in Ireland to our featured reader from Ireland, who has consented to stay awake to meet with us here. And I'm grateful for that. I know how difficult it can be. Very excited to introduce you to Afric McGlinchey, whose work I respond to for a number of reasons, including her orientation to how he experienced the world, which I'll talk about a little bit. So, traveler, quote unquote traveler, perpetual traveler in life, who was, lived for many years in various places in Africa and Ireland born. Afric possesses what I see as the outsider, cross-cultural mentality that a poet can achieve in experiencing culture and experiencing the human experience. They say that her work, and you'll hear how it resides somewhere between myth and reality, symbolic and straightforward quotidian type situations. But what I find really engaging is how our poetry masks, even as it reveals who she is, and as she plays with that, masking her identity, as she's revealing who she is as an explorer, as a person who's researching into and explicating, learning about the subjects as she's writing about them. This discovery thing is something that intrigues me. This engagement is characteristic of a person whose life is a perpetual traveler. Really, if they approach it right, it makes them a practiced observer of culture and experience, and helps them to achieve a kind of wisdom that people who are embedded in culture or in their identity or in their past can never really achieve. So I like that objectivity. I cherish that objectivity that a person in that situation can strive for, but at the same time, if they're not too academic or too in the head, to experience it in any other way, deeply engaged in that confrontation with experience. She's got Afric is a prolific reviewer of other people's work, and if you Google her name with the word review next to it, you can get dozens of reviews she's done of other writers. But you also find some very interesting commentary about her work online very quickly. I noticed one in particular, critic Susan Millie Dumars. Dumars says that some poets are travel writers or exotica writers, sprinkling foreign names in to make it sound exotic or interesting. That sounds like they've traveled a bit, but overlooking the point that moments of great meaning happen all the time on your own crossroads, in your own streets, in your own kitchens. And she says that, in the case of Afric McGlinchey, that she has almost a Whitmanic approach to these experiences, a possession of the transcendental idea that every experience, every atom, and the experience of what you go through belongs to me as good belongs to you, as Whitman says it. And it's that sense of being outside and inside at the same time that makes the world our kitchen, in a sense. And that's just an amazing thing for me to hear and to see and affirm something for me. And the things that she's seen, as Thomas McCarthy, another reviewer, points out, she's seen a girl in South Sudan walking 1,000 miles with only insects for food, then deliver an infant in the desert. These are not travelogues. There's another aspect to being a migrant and a lifelong traveler, and that enables the person with the right frame of mind to be less prone to being judgmental when confronting differences in behavior. Better able to understand the subjectivity of experience and how it's expressed in different places and times, what it is to live in so many places and never belong to any of those places, constantly being in an outsider status on somebody else's sidewalk, and how that shapes her identity. Very aptly stated by Abigail Zamet as being a case of both the erosion and an acquisition of self by experiencing other cultures, just like cliffs, that are eroded, cliffs on the side of, the cliffs of White Dover, or the North Shore of Long Island, that are eroded by the sand, by the wind, and by the water. But at the same time, something is acquired in the patina of the cliffs by that experience as well. That's something that Abigail Zamet is possible for somebody with that approach to cross-cultural experience. Beautiful. I love that. I just love that. So without saying too much more, and that cliffs, by the way, that comes from, a very important poem by Afric, which I don't know if she's going to read tonight, but I hope she does. I Is Not Always Me, which won a Poets Meet Politics competition. She says, we talk about erosion, cliffs giving way, landing in the sea. I think of how a foreign language percolates your own until its idioms even permeate your dreams. That's not acquisition, but erosion too. Bottom line for me, and for many poets, I think, in America today, writing today, is to understand this is a third way. This is not identity poetry. There's an unspoken inference in these critics' remarks that Afric offers an antidote to the confining, what I consider to be the confining, reductive attributes of identity poetry. Through the fluidity and the shape-shifting, intuitive acumen of the emerging self. This is to say that a poet can live in two places at once. Without saying any more, I want to turn you over to our guest, Afric McGlinchey, who in her second book about the stars, the ghost cat of Paris, refers to how poets can, in leaping to their prey, to the experience of the moment, it's going to become a poem. They can master what that cat which hunts to live does as well. A certain leap of your own to jump out of one world and into another. What are we waiting for? Please join me in welcoming Afric McGlinchey.
Great.
I've never had such an introduction. Thank you so much. Have I unmuted myself? I have. Gosh, George. Well, I'm glad you used the word intuitive because I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. So I just hope I don't disappoint you now. Thank you so much for inviting me to have this opportunity to read to an American audience. And also thank you, Caitlyn. It's been really great chatting to you on our various email exchanges, and you're doing an amazing job running these events. So, it's a real honor to be reading as part of the Walking with Whitman series, and so it made me go back to Whitman, and I had him in mind when I made my choices. But so I thought, because he's kind of in the world and of the world, I'd start with a found poem from my first collection, which is The Lucky Star of Hidden Things. There's the star hidden inside an apple. So this is called All Roads. Right. One thing you should know is I'm a whore on the beach at Pampelon, where the sea is milky white, barely distinguishable from the early morning sky. How right you were, Pascal, about our inability to sit in a room alone. In the silence of my third-floor attic under the mansard roof, I was faced with the tedium of my existence. I set out on a journey, praying that the road would be long. He appeared beside me, spindle-shanked, beach blonde, gave me courage, palm touching the black lace of my bodice. His name was Santiago. Our baskets grew more intense as we were mobbed by heat. We followed others, grape pickers and bricklayers, computer programmers and other sex workers, these and millions more, my ancestors who wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. The stars came floating down like paratroopers. We who saw hushed. The noise stopped abruptly, as though a fountain had been turned off. Then he was gone. They were gone. I was alone on the beach at Pampelon, where the sea is milky white, barely distinguishable from the early morning sky. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about the clapping. We can do that at the end. As a tribute to Walt Whitman, I thought I'd read a poem that features blades of grass. So this is called Between Thumbs. A wide blade of grass. I pull it taut until the clean green of it is pin straight, flanked by pink. Put my lips to the paper-sharp edge, air its siren. Remember how a good thick blade whistles long and low, lighter lime ones high to the ear, some furred and thick, others cool and slippery or waxy to the touch. Skinny ones especially are good for sucking, chewing the bitter sap. When was the last time I lay under blue in the cattleless meadow, measuring clouds with my spears, promising myself I'd never forget being 12, alone in a field? So poems usually arrive for me when a convergence of events kind of resonates. And one such event was when, in fact, you mentioned it, George. I'm going to read that poem, where there was a discovery. It was a news item about a discovery of a white raven. And of course, suddenly dozens of voyeurs turned up and to destroy that poor bird's peace as she was sitting on her eggs. And then another event that happened around the same time was my ex telling me that he was working in the Sudan in a refugee camp. And he told me that journalists were always turning up and, like vultures coming and taking photographs of these poor, exhausted new arrivals at the camp. And so those two images seemed like metaphors to me for the invasion of privacy, which is a precious commodity these days that barely exists anymore. So this is called Invasion. I can prove to you that the white raven does exist in a cemetery between two pillars strung with nettles, its pale mirage shuddering under a snowy shroud. And who can blame its secrecy when the church path is bombed with hobnailed boots and camera clicks, and even dandelions rise for a helicopter view, swing their clocks into blinded eyes. What's more, from a satellite, I have seen a girl in South Sudan walk 1,000 miles with only insects for food, then deliver an infant in the desert. Lizards crept from under rocks to watch. She talked to stars, reckless, their light an oasis to cling to through sheets of night, through howls and sweat. Yet when I flew there, found a caravan to lead me to her, she passed the cool mouth of my camera, growled her rejection, glassy as a prophet drumming omens in the sand. So I love the way Walt Whitman sort of acknowledges almost every occupation you can think of in his Leaves of Grass. So I thought I'd read a poem that I wrote for a young Lithuanian mechanic. So this is called Sparks. He levers with a wrench, loose-limbed, speedy, in oil-stained jeans, muscles flexed, fingers dexterous. Hiss and swing as an aperture arm pulls the tire from its rim, plucking it first round the edges like a high, hard scab off skin. He climbs to a mezzanine stack of tires, selects one, throws it down like clay on a potter's wheel. The machine pops, tire snaps back, clank of hammer against steel, then the balancing act, lid hovering, a raised eyebrow. He squats, spins the tire, buzzes a drill, swivels nuts, slick as a job at a pit stop. I reverse, I in the rear view mirror, sparks flying. So, so for the last year or so, the only legitimate escape, really, aside from the odd short walk, has been to Lidl's supermarket. And it reminded me of a poem that I wrote years ago about the stresses of being a young mum. So this is Hung Laundry and Certain Bodies, and it's after David Foster Wallace. When you're burning with hunger for food that does not exist, or find yourself missing somebody you've never met, when you feel like a prisoner who doesn't know she's locked up, well-adjusted is not an accidental term. When you're paying too much attention to a junky trolley, total wrongness to the left and right, or imagining the song of a bird that has come to love its cage, both a wake-up call and an anesthetic. When you feel hardwired, like height or shoe size, to a blind certainty that even the mums who smile a lot are also hypnotized by the monologue inside their heads and must surrender to the back and forth duet to escape from boredom, routine, the petty frustrations of shopping with toddlers in a supermarket hideously fluorescently lit. Just think of the way hung laundry and certain bodies of water take on the scent of air around them. Focus on that. So when my son was 19, he and a friend decided to do a motorbike odyssey from Nairobi to Harare, which is a distance of 4,000 kilometers. And on top of all the other potential dangers, he was uninsured and he had never ridden a motorbike before. Neither of them had ridden a bike before. So it was harrowing for me back in Ireland, just in visualizing all the worst case scenarios. So this is called My Son's Nairobi to Harare Motorbike Odyssey. I see you plunging into wilderness, a clattering storm flashing Harry Potter tattoos across the sky, warthogs barreling into your path, thieves who spotted your gleaming chariot back at some broken bridge cafe, lurking in a baobab tree, ready to ambush your odyssey. I screen old movies of your childhood, the swallowed camphorated oil, which nearly swallowed your life at 2. The dive from a copy at 3, caught at the ankle by a fleet-footed uncle. Nail that sprang from a half-built treehouse into the white of your eye. Your small torso on a bolting horse, flying over a barbed wire fence. Now, new hazards of permitted entry. The rabid bat, shadow hand, hurtling lorry. The slow puncture, empty fuel tank, non-existent map. But your road lies open, and never before did such an openness exist. I trust that you will continue to be charmed. After all, how can the gods resist? So I'm thinking about Walt Whitman, in the world, and I thought I would write about, and also because we're in lockdown and nobody's doing much traveling, I thought I'd do a traveling poem. So this poem was written at Nairobi airport during a 10-hour delay. We were in the thick of an African summer and we were heading back to a very bitter winter in Ireland, and the whole world at that point was experiencing all sorts of dramas. And so this is called White Sky. One. Outside, the sky is white as snow, but there is no snow in Africa today, not in Accra, Entebbe, Addis Ababa, or Zanzibar. It's an impossibility, the idea of blizzards, gales, aberrations of winter while we sit here hugging the heat to our pores. The board flicks names: Brazzaville, Lilongwe, Kinshasa, Djibouti. Our destination will land us in the ice chill, erase all memory of this temperature, the slow, languorous sway of sun people. 2. Umbali wa mwisho wa safari. Have a safe journey, says my screen. Newsflash of an earthquake in Haiti. All over our spinning planet, weathers, shudders, rocks, cracks. 3. We tip this way and that, curving now towards Yol, and already Africa is melting away as a caprice of light flicks up totemic images, northern childhood memories. So, right, on to my next book. My next book's called Ghost of the Fisher Cat, which is kind of set in Paris, medieval Paris. And there are loads of ghosts, cats in it, but they are usually masks or ghosts. And my sister was a contemporary dancer, and she taught me how to do a cat leap. So that appears in the poem, which also explores the tricksiness of memory. So it's called A Leap. And it's got an epigraph from Homer Simpson. In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics. Let's say a cat leaps, and I follow, lifting my feet the way my sister taught me, into the big bang of first love. I am soaring, then land soft as a cat on a red brick ledge among African violets, his hands on a pair of newly found planets, then a mouth cruising skin, hatching a nipple, so blushingly unexpected, I burn for decades. Oh yeah. So the next poem honors the natural world and what we might lose because of our human-centric obsessions, and I am very guilty of those. Anyway, this is called And We Wander. We disappear where the heat is wet and the light is green, and peacock bass fly in the air like fishbowls out in the sun. Listen to the warrior river, throaty calls and high whoops of macaws and hornbills cutting the air in a whoosh, and it isn't quiet at all. And the wet rot twitches and the tall trees shimmer, and a baby monkey in a tree crotch cries for its mama who picks it up in her loping arms. And a python flaunts its pythonness, stalks the frogs, eyes chimpanzees. We slice our watermelons with machetes, shoot pips from our mouths, and we wonder where the jaguars are. And the monarchs throng, and the white sun starts its drowse, and we look up to the trees. So I'm so sorry, I'm very croaky. I lived in Paris for a while, and I wish I had stayed longer. I went back to Cape Town for a bloody boy. But anyway, one afternoon while I was there, I met an artist called Solomon, and he lectured at l'École des Beaux-Arts. So he's in the poem. Anyway, this is called Changing My Mind. That Paris day, those empty August Sunday streets, heat lifting up my arms to fall and slap against my hips, crop top revealing my center of gravity, you called it, when you caught up with me, your cane tapping like a blind man, though I saw it was a limp you had, along with the hump of a dromedary or poet. Safe enough, and a cafe open, coffee bitter. I felt grown up. You were ancient, 40 at least, and telepathic. I know exactly what you look like. It's your gravity I'm wanting. Bony fingers curling round your cup, croissant flaking to your plate. I pour a coffee now. Okay, I'll be your model, though I'm no longer 22 in a Paris cafe, and this memory is just an abstract, your fingers flowing your vision into stone, a state more permanent than a photo. I stare at rain, fingers tapping, far from Paris, your intense attention. Never since have I been seen like that. For now, we sit here, you and me, though you're just a figment, and I wrap my fingers round my cup and smile at you, glance out the window as evening eases into coolness, and change my answer. Yes. So my mother had a heart attack when she was only in her 30s. And then she was very unlucky. She then got cancer and she had treatment for that. And then she started to lose words, and until one day she stopped speaking altogether. And so she always loved her garden. And I tried to imagine what it was like, what was going on in her mind during those last days. So this is called Going Silent, and it's in memory of my mother. And there's an epigraph from Shakespeare: a huge mountain between my heart and tongue. And so it is, having slain apparitions before, she thinks she sees that the moon is in now time. She sears the house with her gaze. What she remembers: she once took a boy's tongue for a kiss. At night, she tears out the door to stand under the heavens. What she hears in the memory is advice to spend time in the garden. What is it like to strike a spade to a corner of earth and listen? She nurses her knuckles with teeth, vanishes underground again. He practices holding her face to get her to speak. Christ, say a word. When she finally shows him, he touches his own lips to taste her terror. What she remembers, as real as blood, is those weather-red lips saying her name. How she lay on the back of his horse, stars tilting back as far as the grass. So yeah, I'm going to read that, the one you mentioned, George. I was living in Zimbabwe and I moved to London and I began teaching English as a foreign language. And I was living in North London and having to commute, it's a long and awful trip every day, down to the south. And then at the school, they actually thought I was from Zimbabwe, so they didn't realize I was Irish. There was so much anti-Irish racism there in the schoolroom, in the staff room, and I couldn't really say anything because I was new and I just couldn't believe it. It was during the 80s, and maybe, I don't know, I can't think what had happened that had caused this huge resurgence of racism. But anyway, once I got well, anyway, it'll come up in the poem. There's an egg incident and it happened. But the voice of the poet, the poem is, I've put it in the voice of one of my students. So this is called I Is Not Always Me. And there's an epigraph. I do like epigraphs. This one's by Arthur Rimbaud, Je hais un autre. I take 4 trains each way through bleary light, hide from the city noise inside my head, where there's only silence or the memory of her cello. My blood's grown thick, my body moves more slowly. That first day, some racist in a drive-by aimed an egg. It hit my back. He chased the car, caught up at the lights, and threw a punch. The stairwell to our bedsit reeks with piss. Hall is crammed with bicycles. Once I cycled to the river, sat all day and stared. Pebbles, floating foliage, strange fish. He roared at me when I returned, thought he'd have to have it dredged. Holds me when I wail at night. I miss my mother. He tells me to pretend she's dead. They come from everywhere, the others. Syria, Peru, Fiji, Senegal. Today we look at colours. Our teacher gestures to the window, but of course the sky is rarely blue. I'm an immigrant, she says, like you. And this, she points to the screen, a southern ocean. This is blue. She tells us about blue movies, how blue's also an emotion. In Advanced, we talk about erosion, cliffs giving way, landing in the sea. I think of how a foreign language percolates your own until its idioms even permeate your dreams. That's not just acquisition, but erosion too. It's only when I follow the slow river and the first real sun of summer kisses fire to its skin that I remember. So the next poem addresses the ecological and climate crises that are facing us, describing how weathers, or rains at least, might become more bizarre. So this is called Holocene. Wolf rain dragging down the mountain, or kinetic beating up the alley wall, or bad friend electrocuting streets, or slipping like cat fur from your shoulders, or slant subversive against a torso, or rain that addresses you with violence, spear thrown from Zulu skies, or a glacial rebound, copper threaded, or thick like vertebrae, or sliding like licorice down a throat, or composed like wine, full-bodied, or body-bagged, ready for a requiem. The next poem was written in response to a call from a UK journal, Magma, for poems with a Latin American focus. So I located my poem geographically, but the exuberance of youth is universal. So although I don't speak Spanish, there are a few Spanish words thrown in for atmosphere, and so please excuse my terrible accent. So this is called Dear World. Sorry. Querido mundo, there is noise and motion at the port of Santa Mar del Bueno Are, a ship in after weeks at sea. Hungry sailors, marineros, leather of foot, burnished and burning, eyes lingering on our luminous ropes. And the light, la luz, is desire made flesh, the length of a sunbeam, a mutual gaze. November, querido, and voices are open-throated on all fours, chaos, disruptions, manias. And the light is the chronicle of the physical day, and querido mundo, who grips no shore, but all of them, you mouth your presence, kick the dust from your heels, and with every joyous feeling, catch your own self red-handed. Oh, this euphoria, nosing the air, each moment stretching from the shadowy thighs of the waters. And the salt-scented evening drifts in from the ocean, and at every taverna entrance, querido mundo, you display us lovely, voluptuous as palm leaves. Our cocoliche voices crooning off walls as the marineros come seeking us out, and for weeks they drink and love and promise to write, and then leave us to pine for the men in whose days we have lived, ruckling sadly amongst the flotsam and crabs and the sinking in. Mornings of mooning at the Plaza d'Orrego, wallowing, indolent, until the dark passes and grass grows again, and we, supple as feathers, come flying out of our doors, and our bodies turn away from the horizon and circle a mountain. And we read the letter that no sailor sent, and it makes us happy, the words like missiles that have missed our heart. And we tear them up, these invisible epistles, and respond with the veils of our laughter, and brightness blows out of us, and como llamas blancas, like white flames, our thoughts move in upward directions. So, hope you're doing all right. I did a workshop with Carolyn Forshey when she came over to Ireland a few years ago, and she challenged us to look at things that we usually avoid And around that time, I had just seen the film Hotel Rwanda. If you haven't seen it, you really should. And also around that time, I had a conversation with my daughter. She is a wildlife documentary maker. So all of those things kind of converged. And so this, oh, and it was February too. So this is called Landmine Valentine. Maybe you're right. And I do rose tint life. Don't want to face the shadow side. Seals stockpiled on a pier. A pregnant woman's bayoneted womb. Jeeps bouncing over corpses. Skinny kids split in the dark, twisted with gin and dacha, then sent out to vent their hurt with matches, fuel, and guns. But when you smile at me, I feel my blood suffused, and all weight lifts. Front page, clouds, the day, my heart. And I hope that's not too Valentine, my love. So another thing that Carolyn made me face was myself. So this is a poem about guilt and regret, and it's set in Dublin. It has quite a long title. On walking past a homeless boy on the Halfpenny Bridge in the rain, a boy about my son's age, and not stopping. The rain is holding him like a coat he's huddled into as I swerve, sleepwalk past. A lie. I've seen him. Anything, something, or before too many steps, that fugitive remorse will set in, steady as this rain. My feet are getting heavier and heavier, but reach the cafe I was heading for. A barista, blonde and long aproned, direct eye contact, not a difficulty at all. With a smile, she welcomes me in, out of the dash of the rain. A large cappuccino with a treat on the side. As I wrap my hands around warmth, a flashback to his, like Hardy's angel, on the strings of his heart. I am inhumanity's accomplice. So many forget-me-nots. Harari's suburban streets at the lights. Tiny hands thrust up to the window. If only there weren't so many, I said to myself, eyes straight ahead, driving on. Half an hour later, the weather has become more kindly, temperate. I return to the bridge with a Coke and hamburger offering, hope of belated redemption. He is gone. Okay, so last two, thanks for bearing with me. I have an autofictional prose poetry collection coming out in August with Broken Sleep Books. So I thought I'd end with two pieces from that. So this is the opening one. It's called The First Migration, or Running Away After the First Slap. And it's set in Sea Road, Salt Hill, Galway, where I was born. So, gates ticking by like dark shirts on a line, black as the blobs of rage in my chest, which fade as I begin counting 1, 2, 5, 11, because I am 4 and no numbers, just like I know we're nearly at the sea, because the wind is blowing us a salt kiss. And daffodils bounce yellowly on their stems like a brass band marching to a silent tune. 3, 7, and birds follow us, air surfing from telegraph pole to tree. And I look back through the bars of each gate to strangeness, to a different front door. And this is my foot, I say, staring down. And my other foot, 1, 2, I tell Ivor, who doesn't know how to count yet because he's only 3. And then I look up and the sky is sending messages I can't hear. Something to do with the new clouds coming in, eating up the sun, all the high-flying blue vanishing until everything is as dark as the sandpaper road under our bare feet. And I know that green is softer than tar. So I cross over, calling Ivor to follow. See the grass, I say, turning around? But my little brother is whimpering, and trotting towards us, long-haired and horned, is a billy goat, monster, trip-trap, from our fairy tale book. And then I'm running back, dragging my brother's hand past gate after gate, blundering into a question. How will I know my own home? And so the last one is set in Dingle, which is a small coastal town in Kerry, on the west coast of Ireland. And friends had invited us to stay there for the weekend in their holiday cottage. So this is called Freak Wonder Sky, and thank you for being so patient. Okay, so Freak Wonder Sky. Before I see the smoke running from the house like a scared dog, before I remember the caramel in the pot and the stove plate I might have forgotten to turn off, before I think of Juno asleep in the last room at the end of the corridor in the cottage 50 meters away, before I bird fly the dune, the strand, the road back to the butler's house, burst through the front door, before I lift my t-shirt to block out the fumes, slam the kitchen door with its long tongue of fire, shut door after door after door to hold back the smoke, sprint my hair loose, yank at the door, at the knob at the end of the corridor, which won't open until I twist it the other way and stumble in, gasping, and lift her out of the bed, nestle her face to my chest so her green eyes are covered the way they bring horses out of a fire, and Juno's legs grip round my waist as I plunge back through the reek of smoke seeping from door chinks and fractures. Before all that, I stand on the brow of the sand dune and face a blood orange sun so apocalyptic it could be the end of the world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Afric. Oh my goodness, so powerful. Thank you so much. Caitlyn was very happy to be.
Letting me down. It was so croaky. Sorry about that.
No, it came through beautiful, beautiful. Why don't everyone unmute again for just a moment and give a big, well-deserved round of applause. Wonderful. Again, I mean, this is the great part of virtual events, right? We get to have her joining us all the way from Ireland. Amazing. Thank you so much, Afric. All right, Josie, I'm going to give you, and I should mention too, we're going to have our Q&A after Josie's song. So get your questions and thoughts lined up, and you can start putting them in the chat. And then you can also come on video to ask your questions live. All right, Josie, going to you. Good.
I forgot to put on my equipment. Okay. I think you'll hear it now. Okay. I was so taken with these readings. It puts you in a trance when you listen to these poets. Both of you, fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing. When I bleed human. Don't tell you nothing about the color of my skin. When I bleed human. Only tells you the condition I'm in. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. We know why. Don't know why. We only look at the outside. When I bleed human. Don't tell you nothing about the color of my skin. When I bleed human. Only tells you the condition I'm in. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. We only look at the outside. Nothing of value on the outside. You gotta look at the inside.
Beautiful, Josie, beautiful.
Oh,
We're
thank
going to
you.
hear more from Josie after our Q&A as well. So everyone's clapping in their silentness, but we will have a real round of applause for you, Josie.
So
All right.
I do write songs that are light. So this is one of
Well, it matches the mood of our poets tonight too, so it's really coming together beautifully.
Thank you. So this one is about my husband. I love your tender side, the side you try to hide. Deep on the inside, you only show it sometimes. On the outside, you pretend to be a tough guy. I wanna spend some time with your tender side. I love that you are like a little boy on Christmas Eve. Whenever you see Amazon come down our street, you check your phone to see if we are getting a delivery. You lose your patience 'cause I'm not tech savvy. I ask too many questions, repeat myself endlessly. It's true, I can't work the TV without you. I love your tender side, the side you try to hide. Deep on the inside, you only show it sometimes. On the outside, you pretend to be a tough guy. I wanna spend some time on your tender side. I love that you are loyal to all your teams. You've never even given up on gangrene. Gives me confidence you won't give up on me. I love that you are passionate about baseball caps. You leave them all over the house and wear one everywhere. Lack of oxygen to your scalp is why you've lost your hair. Was it love at first sight? It's hard to say. Love on the third date is more my way. Takes me time to know what I want, but when I made up my mind, your freedom was shot. I love your tender side. pretend to be a tough guy. I wanna spend some time on your tender side. Come on, let's take a ride on your tender side.
Beautiful, Josie, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
All right, and we're gonna jump into our Q&A, and then we're gonna hear back from Josie again right after that. And again, we'll get our big round of applause. Getting closer. All right, so we have a great amount of questions here. I'm not gonna do them in order. I'm gonna read them just, I think I'm gonna start at the bottom, but we'll get there. We'll get through them. All right. So our first question is from Anthony Policano, and he asked for Richard, did your earlier medical poems start with journals or poems you did from that time or remembered later in life?
Most of the poems actually are from memories, because those years were so intense in terms of growing, growing into medicine, and also my early experiences were at Bellevue, and Bellevue is the type of hospital. It's actually one of the oldest hospitals in the United States, and it serves basically a population there's no other place to go. And so you'd very often see people who were really having major problems with health. And it was just memories just stick with you for life. So I didn't have to write them down. I have a very big source. The poem Su Medico, about the Spanish woman who had diabetes, was very interesting because, it has to do with sort of what we deal with today, something about sort of healthcare and being available and being knowledgeable. She didn't realize that she had diabetes, and her complaint coming in the hospital was not that she had fever for many days and shaking chills, or that, but the fact she was breathing so hard, she couldn't talk. So her complaint was that she couldn't talk. And for me, it was a wonderful lesson, just the fact that I was with her for so long as a student, that it created that bond. And so all those narrative poems, they come from those intense times. It's a long answer for a quick question.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Richard. All right, and then we have a question from Karen DeMauro. Hi, Karen. She's been with us before too. You may recognize her from our programs about how to perform poetry. Karen says, Afric, would you talk about what I experience as your exquisite sense of time and duration in your poems? Each one is the right rhythm and duration for the piece as the line breaks in spaces between images. Is this conscious and deliberate or intuitive? Oh, you're muted, Afric. Good.
Unmute, yeah. Such an interesting question. I think it's probably partly both. I'm very conscious of rhythm when I write poetry. Also, when I'm editing, and I do edit loads, I start, so a piece will be much longer to start with, and then I'll cut and cut and cut. I'll just cut out any extraneous lines. So the idea is to I'm focusing on the rhythm really. So I don't know, I don't really think about timing or duration. I suppose the poem usually just lets me know when it's, sorry, when it's finished. It's just, that feeling when you're writing, and then you get to a line and you think, that's it, I'm finished. So the lines end in a place intuitively, I suppose, but I do cut between the first and the last lines to try and make it as tight as possible. In fact, I was cutting a few lines even today out of the poems I was reading, so it's never done. The editing job is never done.
It's never done.
And then we have another question for you, Afric. Your poems illustrate such an interesting life, particularly your travels. And I ask what brought you to the many places you've been, and that's from Sarah Battaglia.
Actually, my father, I grew up we moved 18 times before I left school. So we moved from not just within city, you know, from house to house, but also from town to town and from country to country. So he in the Irish Army, and he went to the Congo when he was a young soldier and fell in love with Africa. And when he came back after his 6 months stint there, he whisked us all off to Zambia, actually, to start with. And then we moved around a bit in Zambia, and then came back to Ireland after his contract was over. And then my parents both pined for Africa for 5 years or so. As soon as they could, they scooted back there, and then they went to Zimbabwe. So I was used to traveling a lot, moving a lot, and being uprooted, which is, at the time, I hated it, because, you know, when you're a child, you make your friends and you're attached, and suddenly we're off again. So, but at the same time, you had to learn to be able to make friends swiftly, and yeah, you pay attention to things around you. And I suppose it's kind of exciting. It's always new, it's always fresh. You know that feeling when you go traveling, you do it because everything is fresh and different. Well, it was like that pretty much every day for growing up. So yeah, I was very lucky. And after I left home, same thing, I just carried on moving and moving. And even when I got married and we moved 17 times in 17 years of marriage. So it seems to, but I've found my place now, so I think I'm settled.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Bring that to us in your poems too, definitely. All right, so we do have some more questions in the chat, but I'm gonna welcome anyone who wants to jump on camera and ask any questions. Give you a second. Anybody? You wanna just unmute? You have a shy audience, I think, this time. There are a lot of questions, but.
You mentioned in one of your poems, before you read the poem, you said that there was a terrible attitude or bitterness towards the Irish, and I didn't really hear in your poem as to why. So I was wondering, what did we do? I'm Irish. What did we do to these people to have them have an attitude about Irish people?
I think it was around, I think at the time the IRA had bombed the hotel in Brighton, and Thatcher nearly died, I think. I'm not sure. She was nearly in the hotel. So I think there was that attitude. And then there just generally was this kind of, I mean, even I remember we were walking down the street, and there was a guy in the street, and as they walked past, they made some kind of snide comment calling him Paddy straight away. And he got angry and said, "Why do you assume I'm Irish?" You know, but he was drunk. He was a drunk, and so that they just automatically assumed he was Irish because he was an alcoholic. But so that kind of thing, just those things. But I'm just trying to remember what it was. I was shocked that they so openly, in a language school, you know, where there were only two people who objected to the conversation, and one of them was Scottish and one was German. So yeah, it was just an first impression I had was, gosh, this is what it's like to have racism directed at you. It was quite a lesson. So yeah, so the egg.
Thank you.
If I could interject in this, you know, having lived in England for 5 years and seeing the relationship generally between the British and the Irish, and who they are to each other as compared to Americans and the Irish in the late 20th and early 21st century. It's fundamentally a different thing. And that happens not just with the British and the Irish, or the Americans and the Irish, but the British and the Polish people as compared to Polish people here, and other nations as well. So that international and a cross-cultural thing does vary. There's a long history, which
but actually,
is specific to the location.
I do think it's a very strange relationship with the English and the Irish. It's a love-hate. I mean, you know, there's actually a real fondness there as well. And you know, the Irish, the first place they emigrate to is England. So and we have, I think there are 40,000 English people trying to get Irish passports at the moment, at least. So you know, because of the whole EU thing, I think. And my partner is English, so we have a great time every night whenever there's a rugby match or something. You know, we're rooting for other sides, but no, he loves Ireland and would never live in England, so I love him for that. So yeah.
Anyone else want to jump on camera? Their questions? Be brave. Opening up. All right. And I think we had, let's see. We have a lot of beautiful comments for both our poets and our musician tonight in this chat. So I'm going to make sure that you all get a copy of it too, because there's a lot of points when people are commenting during their readings and performance. Oh, I know. We had one more for Josie too. Melva was asking about the second song, I believe. Josie, what the name of it is. Yeah, if you want to just unmute.
Can't Go Home.
Can't Go Home is the name of it? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. That answers that. And yes, I think you're going to get a lot of new followers after tonight with your website in there. All right. So I'm going to make sure that you all get a copy of this transcript because it's amazing. There's so many compliments in there. And we're going to hear a little bit more from Josie, and then we're going to wrap things up. It was such a fun night. It's always sad when it comes to an end, but so great to have you all with us and joining us live like this. And we hope that you follow us on Facebook. And I'm going to put all those links again. Again, we have an Abraham Lincoln program next week, and we have so many other programs for Poetry Month. So I hope you all have a very happy Poetry Month. And we're going to go back to Josie right now. All right, Josie.
This last song expresses a wish that I have for myself and everyone. It's called Have Purpose, Live Long. I want to live honest. I want to be grateful. I want to have peace. And I want to be strong. I want to have purpose. And I want to live long. I want to stand up with all my might. And I want to back down when the time is right. I want to have purpose, and I want to live long. And when I'm done, I want to be remembered. Don't want to disappear into the forever. And I want you to know, if there's a way to show my love from the grave, I will always be with you for the rest of your days. I want to be right and admit when I'm wrong. I want to stand out and I want to belong. I want to have purpose and I want to live long. And when I'm done, I want to be remembered. Don't want to disappear into the forever. And I want you to know, peace. And I want to be strong. I want to have purpose. And I want to live long. I want to have purpose. And I want to live long.
Josie, so beautiful. All right.
Thank you.
We're going to give a big round of applause finally to Josie. Everyone can unmute for just a moment.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Caitlin, for having me.
Of course, we're so glad to have you back. Well, definitely in the future too. Absolutely. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And again, a wonderful poetry month. It's an exciting month. And those links are in the chat if anyone wants to revisit those, watch our YouTube channel. We have all of our poetry readings up on there, some historical programs too. And thank you so much. It was just such a wonderful night, so much fun. Afric, it's amazing that we were able to have you with us all
Yeah,
from Ireland.
that's wonderful.
It was lovely to hear you too, Richard and Josie. They were gorgeous, really beautiful songs. And I thank you very much for having me. I loved it. So
Good to meet you. Thank you.
you too.
Visit us in person, please. You're always welcome. Free tour. All right, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.